Welcome back to Meet the Brand Faces with Ada. On today's show, would be talking to the founders of TalentX. Hi guys.
Hi,
Okay.
Ada.
Hi. So come get to meet you guys.
Sure. I'm Victoria.
Okay.
Um, I'm the co-founder and CEO
Okay.
at TalentX.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Mfon,
Um,
co-founder and CCO of TalentX,
So the CCO.
Chief Creative Officer.
okay. So can you tell us when the idea for TalentX came?
Well, Talent has been around since 2019.
Mm.
Although I'd say the vision has been around a bit longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about 3 years old. Right. Do you want me to go into like the idea?
Okay. Yeah, you can. You can tell us.
Yeah.
Or like
Okay,
the
so-
simplest terms so that everybody
In the
can
simplest terms.
understand.
I'll try. Right. So I mean, when you look at the Nollywood industry,
Okay.
when you look at the film industry, right? You talk to filmmakers, you talk to people who are trying to break into the industry.
Yeah.
You know, either as directors or as production assistants or as actors. There seem to be about 4 problems
Okay.
that kept coming up. You know, while we were trying to assess, the state of the industry and kind of see what problems can we solve for this industry, right? And what would be the best way to solve those problems, right? I'd say the first problem was financing,
Okay.
right? Being able to access not just any kind of financing, right? Cheap financing, right? Appropriate financing, right? Financing that cares about the creative, that cares about the project, and not just, I'm giving you 1M, when are you doubling my money kind of financing,
Okay.
right? The second problem, which is tied to the original problem, was distribution or monetization, right? I like to think those two things are a bit different, right? It's possible to distribute a film but not monetize it, right? And I said it was linked to the first problem, which was financing, because part of the problem or part of the reasons why creatives weren't able to access the kind of financing that they needed was because they couldn't tell the investors how exactly they would make their money back,
Okay.
right? So you're going to an investor, you're pitching your project. I mean, creatives being creatives, they're talking about, oh, this is, we want to impact this, we want to change this narrative, we want to do this. Netflix is going to pick up my film, that one is going to pick up my film. I just need to produce this film, and everybody's going to come running, right? But in terms of specifics, okay, how much would you make from this channel, right? What is the timeline for when you can expect those returns, right? A lot of creatives didn't really know exactly how to explain their path to monetization, right? So for a lot of investors, it's, look, I feel you, right? I see what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
right? But I don't understand how this would not be a waste of investment, right? Because even you cannot explain how you're going to make my money back from me, right? So financing, monetization, right? And this ties to the original problem, because if you're not able to explain how you make money on the project, it's extremely difficult to get an investor to give you funding for your project, right? The third problem we identified, was technical skills, right? Someone wants to be a filmmaker. How do they get the skills that they need, right? Do they just go on set and start being a filmmaker? Or do they go through school? What school do they go through, right? how can they access some of those resources that they need to put out the best quality work. And the final part of that was having a support community, right? And it's tied to the third point. So many people are trying to break into the Nollywood industry. A lot more people than there are opportunities for in the first place, right? So accessing mentorship, accessing the right support, being told this is what to expect, this is what you should take from people, these are the things that you need to have, these are the things that you need to ask for, right? In a role, and not just being exploited or being taken advantage of, because of your new entry into the space. So those are the four problems that we identified. But in terms of just looking into a starting point, in terms of saying where do we start from, right? It took us back to the first two problems that we identified, right? And I believe those are the two biggest problems, right? And because of the kind of relationship that they have, because of the kind of link between those problems, we figured solving those two problems simultaneously, as opposed to solving each one individually, would give a much better advantage, right? Both to us and to the industry. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that covers it. Go from there.
Yes, it does.
Okay. What problems in society do you hope to solve with TalentX?
Hmm. Problems in the society.
Yeah.
Okay. A few things I'll touch on on how we operate, right? We operate with trust, care, all of that. So, um, one of the things she said earlier on, she spoke about disbursements, project management, all of that, and that's um, to cement the trust factor,
Okay.
right, between all stakeholders in this instance, the filmmaking process, right, where cast and crew know, um, as long as talent is involved or people affiliated with talent are involved, there are no stories, right? There's going to be a contract that will be followed through on. People will get paid as and when due at the amount agreed. And essentially, the project will get finished in the agreed time, spent in the agreed amount. So if we look at that using the society, I guess what talent is trying to project is trust, um, integrity, right? And even to, as at now, the kind of projects we're involved in, right? When we think about story, we're also thinking about narrative, right? Enabling African storytellers to tell African stories to Africans and then the world. So, yeah, society, or our gift or proposed gift to society is that of trust, integrity. Yeah.
Question: what projects are you working on? If you can share.
Okay. I can share a bit.
Okay.
So actively we're working on 3, and 2 are in the pipeline to then join our portfolio. The first 2 I will be able to talk about, and 1 I will not be able to talk much about out of the 3. So the first one we worked on was Bani, and it touches on the issue of children beggars, the Almajiri culture, all of that, and it's not a glamorous story, right? But it's a story that needs to be told. And I guess that's also by extension another gift to society, telling real African stories by Africans. So yeah, that's Bani, and Bani is completing post-production, and there will be a rollout plan announced on both Bani's social media pages and TalentX's social media pages in about 4 days. And so that's that for Bani. The second one is Interstate.
Interstate.
Bani is a feature film. Interstate, I want to call it drama, but it's panning out to be like a comedy. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. But the issue it touches is by no means a funny one.
Okay.
So Interstate is basically a road movie. So most of it happens on the road, and it's putting a model Nigeria on the bus. In summary, right? So different tribes, different economic backgrounds, I guess, different religions. So showing a pretty accurate picture of how we as Nigerians interact and how those issues are always, let me say, tension points. So yes, that's Interstate. We just wrapped production for Interstate earlier this month. But Bani and Interstate we have been working on actively since March 2020.
Wow.
Yes.
Are you serious? Takes that
Yes.
long?
We worked on the development for a very long time to make sure at least the basic foundation, which is the story. Story is king.
He was actually a writer on Interstate.
Are you serious? Doesn't mean that.
So yes, I worked mostly as a screenwriter.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, and part of the development process involved me having to then lead a team of writers too. So I co-wrote Interstate as the head writer. Yeah. And then the third one is a series called Rush. Rush is in pre-production. I can't say much about the plot because it's in pre-production. So yeah.
That's nice. So I'm amazed that you're a writer.
Yes.
I thought I would
a
look
very
like
good
a
one.
writer.
Really?
Thank you.
Okay.
She's only saying it. She's only saying it on camera. You know, in person she never agrees with me.
Come on.
I don't know if anyone watches satellite TV, right?
Okay.
But I wrote for the Johnsons.
Are you serious? I watched Johnson.
I told you he's good.
For like 6 years, and maybe a year or two on Hustle, but
Hustle too.
they didn't continue Hustle.
Wow,
So
that's nice. Do you do anything that we don't know about?
confess.
Well, not in the Nollywood space.
Okay.
Before working on talent, I used to work in the finance space, in venture capital.
She's a guru.
Actually,
She's a guru. So both of you are like gurus.
No.
Oh.
She's the guru.
I'm honored to be interviewing both of you. So you're a finance guru. Wow.
I wouldn't say.
You right to.
Yeah.
You right.
Yeah, right.
We talk about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
She
taking
wants to
lessons.
write too.
She was right. I don't know anything about finance, so.
We can include that in the lesson.
Okay.
No
problem. What challenges have you faced, or what's the greatest challenge you faced on your journey?
I think it's going to obviously rank amongst high challenges around the world, right? But it was the pandemic.
Okay.
So prior to that, we probably would have flown beneath the radar a bit longer, to try to keep doing what we're doing and then be sure that we're really onto something. I mean, we knew we were onto something, but just be sure.
Yeah.
But then the pandemic happened and it halted everything around the world. People couldn't go on sets, or at least they were told not to. Some people were going, right? They were told not to. And everything. I mean, only essential workers were allowed to move around. And that became a challenge. But I guess something that helped is, challenges are meant to be conquered. So that also then gave us something else to try to work on. And we decided to still do what we could for the industry, and that was what brought about the Talent Creative Solidarity Fund, where we thought, okay, no one can go on set, but writers can work in their homes. So we then called for stories where we supported 50 stories essentially, right? We asked for treatment synopses, And then the top 50 ranked, I think we gave maybe 25K per story, and you obviously could enter more than one story. So some people had 2 stories, 3 stories in. Then based off of that, we then shortlisted 4 stories that we paid to write their scripts based off of that story. And 2 of those were Bani and Interstate. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, so what's new with TalentX?
So I want to talk about a product that we're working on.
Okay.
But just to go from what he was talking about. So when the pandemic happened, I mean, people couldn't go on set, but they couldn't go to the cinemas either, right? And people who already had films, had to look for other ways to have their films, seen, right? And I think just off of the small success that came out of that exercise, right? I think a lot more people started to understand, why I like to call them the traditional distribution dynamics, wouldn't work for every creative, right? And by traditional distribution dynamics, I'm referring to, go to the cinema, Netflix, Amazon. What else? What else do we have? I think those are like the really common ones, right? So we start to see, right? So we start to see people, work more with transactional video on demand, right? Set up a website, sell tickets to the film, and make money from your film, right? As opposed to giving away, I don't know, 55, 60% of your revenue to the cinemas, right? Paying a marketing fee, and there's still no guarantee that you make as much as the marketing fee that you put into the project, right?
And no matter what you make, they keep more.
Are you serious?
Right.
Okay.
So I mean, except you're doing a high budget film, except you're doing a wedding party, or a ghetto kind of film where you have all the big names. If you're doing a project like Bani, right? I mean, you can't expect much to come out of the cinema route, right? So we saw that, we understood the problems that creatives were facing when it came to distribution. I mean, out of the over 2,500 films produced by Nollywood every year, like how many of them actually end up in cinemas? How many of them end up on Netflix, right? We did a small survey, right? And I don't know, 60-70%, of those projects definitely don't end up on those mainstream distribution channels. So the question is, what happens to the other 60%, right? That's where you see a filmmaker make a film, right? Crowdsource funding, right, for the film, make the film, only to release it on YouTube, right? I saw those things and I'm like, not with the stress, the effort that goes into making a film. Like, you should be making money from the film, right? But the problem is, because there are no options, filmmakers have become content with just having people see their work, right? If I make this one, I make the next one, I don't know, something may happen and it blew, right?
Somewhere in the future.
Somewhere in the future, right? So we thought, what can we do to accommodate that 60% or that 70% of projects that get made but don't qualify for mainstream distribution, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? We're not trying to disrupt the space, right? We're just trying to do what people have tried out and what is working for them, right? We're only saying, in this case, you don't need to go all out, doing a website and setting up, payment integrations. Just create a simple profile on monetization platform, which we're calling Grid. That's GRID,
Okay.
right?
Good.
You know, post your content, share your links with your friends.
Yeah.
They'll come, they'll pay for your work, right? If you're going to run ads on your project, you know that the return on investment would be a lot better than if you were just putting it on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
how
you have
much?
those numbers to back it up too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because, I mean, for every 10,000 views on YouTube, how much do you make? I don't know, $10, $20. I mean, it's ridiculous, frankly, right? So what we were trying to do was figure out a way for filmmakers, independent filmmakers mostly, you know, to make something substantial, you know, back on their film. But that's just one part of it, right? You know, on the other side, you have being able to, you know, build communities around their brand, you know, being able to manage and engage those communities, being able to reward, you know, the loyalty of the communities, being able to raise funding from those communities, a lot of things, right? And by the time we're, I wouldn't say done building, right? But by the time we built up to a point, we would have put together a model. I don't want to use the word ecosystem again. It's like would have built a model or an economy, right? You know, that creators do not want to be a part of, right? You know, where creators want to stay on the grid, you know, as against off the grid. You know, a place where they can access opportunities, you know, where they can get what they need, right, to grow. And I guess this ties to our ecosystem approach, right? You know, having highlighted those 4 problems, we figured, you know, we probably can't solve all of these problems, right? You know, so how can we partner with other people who are also solving problems in the industry, right? To do that, you know, first we invested in a startup called Filmmakers Mart. You know, they started out as a locations marketplace for productions, right? You know, something I like to describe as the Airbnb for production locations, right? And then we invested in this startup called Albancho. You know, they're doing something new. I don't think there's, you know, anyone doing that in Africa, actually. You know, they're building a scripts marketplace where script writers and people who are looking to acquire scripts can meet, you know, can transact. I think, you know, they're actually building on Web3, right? And then the final part of that, you know, was a partnership that we had with Afrochella. You know, they're this music festival giant based in Accra. You know, so we partnered with them last year. I think that was in December. Yeah, to hold, you know, the first edition of our film festival. You know, which is supposed to be a platform or an avenue for filmmakers to access, you know, opportunities, investors, you know, distribution, and the support community that we mentioned earlier. So yeah, that's what's new in talent.
Okay, thank you very much. So can you tell us more about your collateral management service?
Sure. I think I'll start like this, right? First, investing in films can be profitable, right? Can be very profitable. And I'm saying this from my background in venture capital, right? Right? I mean, in terms of profitability, right? In some cases, you're looking at 2 to 5 times in a space of 2 to 3 years, right? I mean, of course, other factors come into play, you know, like success rates and things like that, right? On average, I'd say the success rate in the industry is about, 50%?
Thereabouts.
Yeah. Where success rate means, you know, recovering the funding that went into the project and then some,
Okay.
right? So about 40-50% thereabout, which is higher than what you'll find in places like in the US, for
Okay.
example, right? Where you probably get success rates of about 30%. In Nigeria, there are entities that have cracked success rates as high as 90%, right? And these are always people who have solved both financing and monetization, right? So compared to other investment options, right, where you invest in stocks, if the market goes down, your investment goes down,
Yeah.
right? If it goes up, your investment goes up. And if you remember the definition that I was giving, the other time about our involvement, right, is we connect creatives to investors who are looking to invest in uncorrelated assets, right? And that's like a key advantage of film investment, right? The market could be going red, and film is still, doing well, right? So that's the first thing. Film investment is very profitable, right? The second thing is there's a lot of interest, right? Increased interest in this space, both on the distribution side, right? And also on the financing side, right? We're seeing more and more government initiatives to creatives, to filmmakers, the CBN, the Lagos State government. We're seeing private investment houses, right? We even know of a commercial bank, that is also looking into funding films, not with
Creatively.
hard collateral, like with intellectual property as the backing, right? And this is something that is relatively new around here, right? So there's a lot of interest in the space. There's a lot of activity in the space, right? The third point is that there is a knowledge gap between creatives and investors. Creatives understand the creative side, but they don't understand the business side. Investors understand the business side, but they don't understand the creative side, right? On this point, I do not like to describe us as the middleman or as the bridge, because I think Nigerians have a certain perception
Of
right,
middlemen.
of middlemen, right? Before we see someone who's trying to disrupt, that space, and we're like, hey, let's eliminate the middleman, right? I like to think of us more as a service provider, right? That helps to minimize the risk of non-completion of projects on one side, right? And then on the second side, to increase the success rates from the 40-50% industry average to as high as 80-90%, right? And then the final part of that would be in the event of a default, right? How do you, as a bank, distribute the intellectual property? What do you do with the film, right? So the filmmaker has defaulted, and you own the IP. So what next, right? How do you recover your money, right? Does that mean you have to go in the business of distributing films just because you want to invest in films, right? So we see ourselves more as a service provider, right? As a collateral manager. And what this basically entails is for people who have an interest in funding films, right? But do not have the right knowledge, right? Or the right set of skills to successfully fund those films, right? We offer sourcing and selection services. We offer transaction structuring services. Negotiating terms, that kind of thing, right? We offer pre-funding due diligence, post-funding due diligence. Managing disbursements, auditing transactions. Managing the project, actually being on the ground, right? On set as a project manager, right? To address issues as they come, right? And that's mostly our guy here. So he's on set. I mean, he's been on set since how many years ago? So, he's familiar with how things work there. We're able to, nip certain things in the bud before they become major problems that would lead to say, oh, yeah, your main actor he's no longer interested, he's walking off, right? Because the welfare was so bad. So things like that, right? Services that make sure that film investment wouldn't be something that an investor would do once and be like, never again, right? So how do you sustain that interest, right? How do you keep investors coming back, right? So this is not just for us, it's for the industry as well. And like you mentioned, there's a bit of a trust issue, so us being involved, kind of reduces that risk by a lot. So that's essentially what the collateral management service is.
Okay. Thank you. Alright guys, thank you for sticking with us on today's episode of Meet the Brand Faces with Ada. On today's show, we had TalentX, the founders of TalentX, Victoria and Mfon. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you guys. Bye.